Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the Materwelon channel. I hope you're all alright, and today we gotta address some absolute lunacy I've seen going on recently. Obviously it's on Twitter, cause it's always Twitter, where Lil Nas X, yes, the rapper and Popstar, got called out by, you probably already noticed if you read the title, Lil Boosie or Boosie Badazz. And let's just put it this way, what he had to say about Lil Nas X turned out to be so awful and grotesque that Twitter had to delete all of his tweets. Anyway, before we get into all that, if you could stop, you'd honestly do me a massive favor. You'd be one of my favorite human beings on earth, cause currently I'm trying to become active on this channel again, but I'll only become confident in my ability to actually try and do so and not to vanish again if I manage to properly release at least 5 videos. And until then, let's see what the future holds. Alright, so for those of you that somehow do not know, Lil Nas X has become one of the most prominent and relevant people in the rap game during the past, I would say, 2 years or so. And with everyone that reaches this level of fame in the music industry, they'll of course be bombarded with toxicity and hate quite frequently. Although with Lil Nas X it's a little bit distinct, cause even though he hasn't necessarily done anything to warrant actual hate, well, let me correct that, it actually depends on what your religious beliefs are and your stance on clout chasing. But like overall, he's not been completely controversial, at least with directly firing shots at other people in the rap industry. But there's of course something special about Lil Nas X that sets him apart from a lot of other rappers in the sense of why he would get hate. And in case you weren't aware, let's just say this, if he was on a baseball team he'd be catching, if you know what I mean, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, by the way, just putting that out there. But his homosexuality is of course something that does get him a lot of negative attention, especially considering he's widely seen as a member of the rap community, and hip-hop is a music genre that isn't exactly notorious for their acceptance of everyone. Honestly, it's probably one of the most hostile environments for an LGBTQ person to even be a part of, which is probably why he somewhat diverted into a pop direction recently. Let's not beat around the bush for any longer. Lil Nas X did really suffer some pretty tough verbal abuse today, or a couple of days ago from where you're watching this video, cause Boosie, Lil Boosie, Boosie Badazz, or whatever he does go by nowadays, did say some truly disgusting shit over on his Twitter. So let's read these poetically brilliantly composed tweets and totally non-hateful statements together. Stop trolling me, lol, you a hoe. Playing with a gangster, shaking my head. You can keep and getting in your in peace. And hashtag you hate yourself. Gotta love those Twitter boomers who actually still hashtag. Like, I thought that trend died out in 2015. I would too if I was you, lol. Nas X, if you hashtag commit, you would do this world a huge favor. Nobody wants you here. And he decided to follow that up with a truly deep hashtag. Hashtag think about it. Nobody wants you here. And then he ended this rant with stop playing with the straight hashtag lol. Wow, okay, somebody's having a midlife crisis. Alright, let's dissect this. Look, genuinely, I could not care less what Lil Boosie is doing with his free time on the internet. Or actually, I could not care less about what Lil Boosie is doing at all. Cause this man, even though he's been releasing rap music for about 20 years now, has not had one mildly popular song during the past decade. The only reason he even has any sort of relevancy currently is cause he dropped that collab project with Mo3, who, in case you didn't know, passed away the same year, thus bringing a lot of attention to that project. Rest in peace, by the way. But other than that, Boosie Badazz has hardly been a relevant figure in hip-hop at all, especially if you decide to compare the state of his career to that of Lil Nas X. I mean, damn, the sheer contrast on that, and I'm not even just talking about clout and raw numbers here, cause admittedly sometimes you do have people like CJ with millions of monthly listeners but hardly any dedicated fans at all. But even with the core fan base, Lil Nas X has to outmatch Boosie by at least a couple of million. Even though I've just stated how essentially Lil Nas X would never even need to respond to somebody who has that little impact in contrast to him, we can't forget that despite all that, Boosie still has a lot of respect in the rap game, so all of the trending news tablets obviously picked up on this story. And I think that's a shame, honestly, because these type of tweets directly aimed at another person, not for anything they've done, but just for their sexual orientation, really should not be rewarded with any sort of attention at all, especially not support. Like, man, even if you hate Lil Nas X for whatever reason, maybe some people think he's a clout chaser or an industry plant, or he tries to be forcibly controversial by making obscure dress choices, but even if you think any of these or all of these, you have to admit that this is taking things way too far. For the full context, Boosie apparently tweeted this series of horrible statements after Lil Nas X jokingly spoke about collabing with him, although Boosie has obviously been openly homophobic and hostile towards Lil Nas X in the past, and this probably caused Boosie's street rapper pride or whatever to be damaged. But even so, that does never justify a response like this. You're taking yourself way too serious if you respond to an obvious joke like this. Additionally, I think what also upsets me about this entire situation is that Boosie's reasoning for hating on Lil Nas X's sexual orientation is not even some religious bullshit that, for example, some Christians try to pull off. By the way, even if Boosie was homophobic due to religious reasons, it still wouldn't be justified at all. Like, come on, you're trying to tell me if someone dares to not marry a woman, he'll be burned in hell for all eternity according to Christianity, or even if a man kisses another man, Buddha will reincarnate them as a fucking cockroach or something. Like, hell no, no religious argument can humanize homophobia and open hostility towards queer people, who honestly probably just want to be left alone. But the thing is, this isn't even a religious argument. This is literally just, I'm a street rapper from the late 90s, therefore I have to gatekeep my dying culture and attack any homosexual that dares to reach my radar. Like, no, clearly you're just an insecure homophobic piece of shit. And by the way, no hate towards the Boosie fans watching this. Separate the art from the artist, I don't mind. All I'm saying is that as a person, Boosie Badazz has become increasingly unlikable the more he posts. Speaking of posts, all of this man's tweets prior to the meltdown only received a couple of 100 likes till 1,000 likes each. So perhaps one could successfully make the argument that the main reason he would be inclined to publicly drop such statements could be clout related, as he would know that this will blow up in today's climate. However, I can't safely conclude either way. These tweets have meanwhile been deleted by Twitter, by the way, because of course they have. I don't think there was ever a time on Twitter where you could just encourage people to end their life without at least receiving some kind of repercussion. Anyway, I guess the main point I've been trying to make in this video, other than, you know, don't attack people for their sexuality, is that Lil Nas X should just continue ignoring this man, because even though he probably does have some personal hatred towards Lil Nas X, giving him attention and clout will only benefit him, and he would eventually just construct himself like a nice little niche homophobic community and just thrive off them. And even if you don't particularly approve of Lil Nas X, don't hate on him purely because he happens to be gay. That's just a line of thinking that I could absolutely never support. Anyway, that's the end of today's video, folks. I hope you enjoyed.